Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and it is the most wonderful time of the year, for it is Victober, a month-long read-along hosted by Kate Howe, Katie of Books and Things, Marissa of Blatantly Bookish and Ros of Scallydandling about the books. This is a read-along all about celebrating Victorian literature. You have participated in this read-along if you only read one Victorian book in October. And this year, I might just read one Victorian book in October, because the book that I have chosen is a lengthy tome that I meant to read last year and have been avoiding because it means the end of a series, the end of an era for me, and that is The Last Chronicle of Barset by Anthony Trollope. Victober comes with a few prompts from the hosts, and so I'm hoping that The Last Chronicle of Barset actually fulfills 3 out of 4 of the prompts. Kate's prompt, which is to read a book that has religion within it, and the Chronicles of Barsetshire generally tends to deal with the vicars and curates and those sorts of people who are living in Barsetshire. Also, I do believe that this book is based around a check going missing that a vicar had or something like that. So I already know that it's going to do that. Marissa's was to read a book that was originally serialised, and I've checked and it definitely did that. And Katie's was to read a book that plays with form in some way, and I believe that there are letters featured in The Last Chronicle of Barset. And therefore, because this book is 800 pages long, I'm saying that this is me fulfilling 3 out of 4 of the challenges, because it's going to take me a lengthy time to get through. One of my challenges to myself this year was to read more Anthony Trollope, and I always had this book planned to read in October, because I've read a lot of the Barsetshire books in October and it feels like an annual thing, and since it's the last one, I'm planning on having fun with it. I believe that Ros's was to interact with a play from the Victorian period, either by reading it or seeing it, and something is happening. So I will be reading Charley's Aunt by Brandon Thomas, I think that's the author, but I did see that Ros had left some recommendations in her video. I haven't watched it yet because I'm a terrible human being, but there are recommendations for plays that were written by female playwrights from the Victorian era, so I think I'm going to try and get one of them read as well, or see if there is a production of it on YouTube, because you can do that as well. I do have a few more books that are on my TBR. The next is a book that came into the charity shop. We had an entire set of the Scholastic Classics donated, and one of those books was Moonfleet by Meade Falkner, and I liked the sound of this. It got a bit battered in my bag bringing it home, but I really like the font in these. It's nice and big, and they've set it out so that it will appeal to the younger reader, I think. I don't believe that they've been edited in any way. I thought that I'd heard about this book, and then I went back and Kate had recorded a review of this last year, and she seemed to really enjoy this one, and therefore I decided to get it and add it to the TBR for the month, because it's an adventure story, and I do like an adventure, and if it's going to be fast-paced, then I think that I'm going to want this with a very hefty book that I'm reading there. So that's why I've got that one. And a couple of months ago, I recorded a first line battle between Anthony Trollope's books, and I read the start of this book in there, and Katie got in touch with me to ask whether I'd like to buddy read that book in October. We haven't spoken about that any further, but I said I'd like to, and so I've got it here, and whether that's still going ahead, I don't know, but I'm going to be reading it, and that is Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. I'm doing it again. I'm basically, once again, a Trollope for Trollope. Can't remember what this book is about, but I'm finding it funny that I'm off to Whitby and I'm going to be reading a book about Mr. Scarborough. That's all I will say on the matter. But will I get this one read alongside the 800-page Anthony Trollope? Because this one is 510 pages long. So that would mean I would be reading 1,300 pages of Anthony Trollope in October. Do we think we can do it? I don't know. But they're just the physical editions that I have at the moment. There were also prompts to read a book by Wilkie Collins and or a book by Arthur Conan Doyle due to the fact that we lost two fantastic members of the BookTube community over the last year, Jennifer Brooks and Alice of Alice's Giant Bookshelf, or Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Do you know, we spoke for years and I still never learnt what her channel name was because, as I have always maintained, I am a terrible human being. If I were to read a Wilkie Collins novel, I would like to read No Name. I just can't find this book from the library. I'm pretty confident I ended up taking this book out of the library at one point, but it's not there anymore. So I'm going to check whether they've taken it off the shelf and got it for sale when I go in there tomorrow. And if they haven't, I'm going to have to buy a copy. I mean, can you believe it? But that might not happen, so don't hold me to that one. I want to read it, but with how hefty these books are, I don't know whether I'm going to get to them. And Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm pretty confident I have a few of his short stories somewhere in my room. I like the Sherlock short stories, but I found that I didn't care for the novels, and so I unhauled a lot of them a few years ago. Yeah, I do think that I still have a copy of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes that my granddad gave to me. I read it when I was in year 6 because we were reading the Sherlock Holmes short stories and I asked whether I could take my copy in because I was showing off. I mean, that's what I did. Them's the Victorian books that I intend to read next month. I do have a few more modern books that I would like to read in October as well, so I'm going to mention them here. One of those is the 125 pages that I will be reading of the complete short stories of Elizabeth Taylor. I have now read 250 pages worth. I am enjoying Elizabeth Taylor's short stories, even if I do occasionally have problems where I think that the stories might have gone on too long or they've given themselves a plot that I don't think was necessary. But I'm enjoying it because it feels like I'm getting to see where Elizabeth Taylor got character ideas from, or she might have expanded upon them later on in the story. Either way, enjoying this. In September, our guest poet at Poems and Pints was Kieran Hodges, so I have his second collection, which is Solastalgia, and this is a difficult book to read. It discusses climate change, it discusses mental health. Some of the poems are as though he's talking to his therapist. Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, look at that. Look at that for a poem. I don't even think you can see it properly, but yeah. It just plays with form on the page and that sort of thing. I did read his first collection, Cosmocartography. I thought I read it in 2016, but when I spoke to her, I found out it was actually 2019, and I apologise because, you know, I had a concussion in 2019, so I can't be blamed for anything that happened then. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And then I keep talking about how this is an autumnal book, so I'm including this on my TBR for October, and yeah, I might not get to it until November, but as long as I've read it in autumn, I'm going to be happy. And that book is The Moonlight Market by Joanne Harris. I am really looking forward to this book now. I adore Joanne Harris, as we know. I still haven't read her previous book before this. Was that Broken Light? I'm hoping it's going to tell me. So I don't have or own Broken Light, which was her previous book, because it came out last year. It was somewhat more expensive than I could afford, and then I put myself on this self-imposed book buying ban, and yeah, I know they have it at the library, so that's fine. But this is like a modern fairy tale in London. It is urban fantasy. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I am looking forward to it. So that one is one that I'm definitely hoping to get to. If you see me throw out all of the Victorian books just to read that one, don't be surprised. And there is another book on this TBR, but I can't show it to you yet because Charley of Charley Books Reads chose it for me to read in October. I chose her a book to read as well. Actually, it's not in October, it's just by the end of the year. But those videos won't be out for a couple of weeks yet, so I didn't want to spoil the entire thing. Therefore, you're just going to have to wait and see what that book was when I get to it. Them's the books. If you've read any of these books and would recommend I prioritise certain ones over others, then please feel free to let me know which in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.